why do I have to do this in order for you to allow me into your kingdom, for instance, right?
I just couldn't come to terms with the idea that there's the one way, the truth, and the life when there's so many people that claim to have that one path.
What is it? John 3:16, right?
Hey, what you believe is what you believe.
God loved the world, so loved the world he gave his only son.
If that's what you find comfort in.
So that whoever believes in him shall
And you want to believe that?
not perish, but live everlasting life, right?
Then great.
How can you exclude the rest of the world and say that your club got it
I
right?
feel like having a right way and a wrong way doesn't always work.
Like, what is that one thing that really resolutes with you and your soul that lets you know that you've got it right?
In order to believe that John 3:16 is the absolute truth, I would need God to tell me that, not you or a pastor or my friend or my sister or my mother. You know, I would need God to tell me that.
There must have been something that lets you know that this is the only way. And how come I don't know that yet?
If God were to say to me that that's that simple, there would be nothing stopping me from embracing that.
I'd like to know why Jesus is the only way to God. I've always had this idea that if there is a heaven, good people should be allowed to get into heaven regardless of what their religious beliefs are. Is Jesus Christ the only way to you because you say so and I just have to deal with it?
I don't like that at all. It really rubs me the wrong way.
What's the valid reason that he is the only way I can get to you? Why can't you accept me as I am, as a good person?
Kind of like a arrogance to it a little bit.
I have an immediate sense of seclusion when I hear I have to believe this specific thing, or sorry.
And even as connected of a world as we have now, there's still plenty of people that will never hear the word of God.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's not their fault.
If there is one God, why is there so many different religions, I guess? Which one is right, or why is there so many choices?
I'm not taking a leap of faith off the deep end until I've got a little bit more evidence to trust that I'm going to come out all right on that other side. And I'm open to having that evidence and having that reason for me to take that leap. I just haven't found it.
I don't know how well you've been able to resonate or connect with any of the doubts that have helped us introduce the topics and the themes for each messages for the last 6 weeks, but I hope you've at least listened to them. I hope you've listened to their and their questions and the doubts that they have, because even though these videos were recorded about, there are still people today who ask questions and have the same doubts. And I hope that if you're not one who has these questions or doubts, that you've been able to acquire some answers, thinkings and feelings. You know, as Christians, we just can't assume things like we do, or that they're just going to accept because we say it. As I said before, we've always got to go where people are. Stand where we are. The burden is on us to help them understand. Jesus said in the Great Commission, go. Did he not? He said to go. And you know what? We've always think he's just talking about geographically. That all we are to do is to go to another place and to share about the good news of Jesus. But you know what? The more I think about it, the more I pray about it, God's putting in my heart that sometimes we have to emotionally go where someone else is. We have to psychologically go to where people are in order for them to come to know who Jesus Christ is. But you know what? No matter where we wrestle in our own faith, Jesus said in John chapter 14, and it says this, I am the way, and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Today, in today's world, when you say things like that, it suggests this is the tolerant, arrogant, judgmental, bigoted, and a lot I probably should say in church. Because you know what? The word for places is the benefit of the doubt. I interpret them as I just want everybody to. As the stickers continue to evolve, more and more into a, I think it becomes harder and harder for me benefit of the doubt. You see, when we spend more time thinking about the core meaning, compromise is cooperation. If it were merely cooperation in a heartbeat, because that's very Paul said in Romans chapter 12, verse 18, when he said this, if at all possible, live at peace with everyone. I'm all for cooperation. And if someone wants to believe that, but what I can't accept is what me to compromise for this. That's or nowadays. You know, the traditional meaning of tolerance is that we should agree to disagree with others, respect their rights to believe what they choose to believe, and then stop. In response, we live saying this. I think the most tolerant group of are on. But in addition to that, we've got to be known for never going to understand. There's just no of God's truth. But when what they're saying is in direct, what we know the Bible teaches and says, here's what we've got to remember. That two completely opposite be true. Today, the use of the word tolerance is being used to make this a reality when it can't be a reality. Because truth is what is real, right, and corresponds to what actually exists. The truth does not change with our beliefs or understanding. So, you know what? When Jesus came and claimed to be the truth, we have to set his statement in the life. You heard it say that, that arrogantly. You know what? Jesus didn't do any out of arrogance in his. He says, I am the The context of his life says that it's a statement of compassion, and that makes perfectly good sense. See, Jesus' statement in John 4 is important. Said on the face of the earth and in the history of mankind, and you know what? It's the statement that all of us have to deal with in our own lives. Because everything about Christianity comes down to whether or not we believe that Jesus is the way and the truth and the life. Now, do we have questions times about what that means. I do. Exactly mean. But it all comes down to believe that Jesus Christ came to this earth to provide us the way to spend eternity with God. If we aren't at that point in our lives, what we show me the evidence. That's what I want to do. That people are saying that are for 5 weeks we've looked at is the role of the Bible in our lives. And today what I want to do is to spend a few minutes looking at 3 myths that people will use to try to John chapter 14 verse 6. Hopefully, maybe that you might have. There'll be some things that God will drop. The first myth to the people use probably say that. I have. They'll say that on the surface, some differences, but onto it, when you strip away all fundamental thing, and if that's ever heard of some? In other words, what they're saying is to the same mountain. And because all religions basically teach the men and women and the universal of fatherhood of God, it doesn't matter which one we follow. Now, granted, there are some Islam and Christianity share a belief in monotheism, and there's just one God. And a lot of religions teach that there is something that happens beyond this life here on earth. But there's a lot between Christianity and all of those things. For instance, when Jesus asserts that he is the way, the truth, and the life, and that he's the only path to God, what Jesus does is he puts Christianity in a class all by itself. If the path to God is through Jesus alone, then Christianity cannot be recognized with any other religion. You see, the uniqueness of Christianity and the uniqueness of Jesus Christ. Look at some of these statements, okay? Someone once put this together. Makes a lot of sense to me. A lot of religions will say this: follow me and I will show you how to find truth. And Jesus said, what? I am the truth. Religious leaders will say, follow me and I will show you salvation. But Jesus says, I am the way to eternal life. Religious leaders say, follow me and I will show you how to become. I am the light of the world. Religious leaders say, follow me and I will show you the door. I'm the door. Because Jesus can say all of these things, it's then that he says, follow me. We don't follow him to somewhere else. We follow Jesus because he is the one that we're looking for. Do you see the difference between all of these other religions and Christianity? For a long, long time, people have tried to harmonize all of these various teachings, meld into one, but you know what? You can't do that because they're so drastic and there's such irreconcilable differences between Christianity and all of the other belief systems. The main difference is this: in all other religions, mankind has to reach out to God and to do something to earn his favor. But in Christianity, what happens? God reaches out to mankind, and he takes the initiative to connect with us. I think this is illustrated in a couple of stories. One was told by Jesus, and another is included in Buddhist literature. Both stories talk about a young son who left home, but then saw the error of his ways and decided that he wanted to come back and to be reconciled with his family. Let's start with the Buddhist story first, okay? This wayward he comes back to work off his penalty for all of the misdeeds he had done. His punishment was servitude. In fact, according to the writings of this Buddhist writer, the son ended up working for 25 years to pay off his debt. And guess what his job was every day for 25 years? To haul manure. Talk about a crappy punishment. Just checking. But the parable that Jesus told is a lot different, is it not? The repentant son is what? He's warmly welcomed home. He's embraced by his father. He's given undeserved grace and forgiveness. And there's even a party that's thrown because he's home. Now, there's not to mention that there's some other, a lot of the other world religions. For instance, Christianity says that there's one eternal God who created the universe. If you've looked at anything about Hindu, seat that you're sitting on, it's a God. Islam denies that Jesus was God or died on a cross for our sins. And you know what? It's highly probable, writers say, that Buddha, the leader of Buddhism, didn't even believe in God, a God of any kind. I hope you can see the difference. All religions are not the same. So many of the core teachings are in direct conflict with one another. And again, two opposite things, until recently, two opposite things could never be right. So religions are not all the same. Does that mean that there aren't some other religious leaders might add to our lives? Yeah, they do. There's comments and things that I read from other religious leaders. Thinking, man, it's good stuff. But you know, only Jesus Christ, because he was the perfect Son of God, was qualified to offer himself for all of the wrongdoing in our lives. I know of no religious leader who has ever even said that they were capable of doing that. It would be somewhat illogical. The world, and he told people, here's the way to become reconciled to me. But then he went over to the other side of the world. Let's do this. It's completely contradictory to what I've told these people, but this is what I have to do. If that was God and how he acted, he would almost cross what? Schizophrenic. However, it makes total sense that God would provide one single path for us to follow in order to be reconciled to him. And it makes sense that he would, in an extraordinary way, sending his son to this earth to communicate that message and then ask us to tell one story about how we reconcile ourselves to him. It doesn't matter what hollow on our spiritual journey, people will say, but it does. Oh, it does. Because all religions do not teach the same thing, and we've got to decide, okay? Else can make a decision which makes most sense. Second myth that you will oftentimes hear people use to dispel the idea that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, and it's this: Christianity is just one philosophy among many, and it's no more valid than any other system of belief. In other words, what there's no difference between Christianity and other religions because they all have equal claim. Today, the idea is what? You have your truth, I have my truth. What that leads to is what's called pluralism. And the Oxford Dictionary defines pluralism this way: a condition system in which two or more states, groups, principles, or sources of authority, look at that last word, coexist. It's interesting, as dictionaries often do, that the Oxford Dictionary provides definition in the context of philosophy, and it says this: it's a theory or system that recognizes more than one ultimate principle. Put the word there, because that's what they're saying that it. That's pluralism. Here's something that we have to remember too, okay? Country, unlike most other parts of the world, where the U.S. Constitution protects all in a pluralistic society like we live in. Christianity is protected, but so is Satanism. And so is every other religious belief that you can think of, even ones that people make up in their own minds, is protected by the Constitution of our government. And as Christians, we hold tightly to this freedom of religion in our country. But you know what? Every other religion has the same right as we do, even though we disagree with them. So that causes a lot of tension and a lot of pressure for a lot of Christians. So how do we... Words to young Timothy in 2 Timothy chapter 2, I think this is key. Paul says, a servant of the Lord must not, but must be kind to everyone, be able to... Verse 25, gently instruct those who oppose the truth. Gently instruct those who oppose the truth. Perhaps, perhaps God will change the people's hearts and they will learn the truth. Oh, that last phrase just gets me. Because oftentimes we take all of the responsibility for people knowing the truth. But what is Paul saying to Timothy here? Perhaps. Maybe. God will change their hearts. So who is it that really we need to rely on for people to overcome all of their objections and their skepticism and even their hostility towards God? It's not our job. Our role is to be a witness to what we know is true. And so many times what happens when we're in a situation like this, into some meaningless argument with somebody who distracts us, who makes us question whether or not we're even a Christian ourselves. And we don't see them come to the level of truth that we think they should be at. And the bottom line is this: it's the Holy Spirit who's going to do that anyway. We just got to be faithful in sharing what we believe and what we hold on to, that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. You know what I find is sometimes problems arise for Christians when people that we're talking to know more about Jesus than we do. All we know sometimes is what somebody else has told us. And the skeptics and the people who are hostile to God, they research it. They will look for the details. If we don't know for ourselves that Jesus is the only way to God, then how are we going to help someone else? Throughout this series, we've tried to provide you with some things to wrestle with about God, about the Bible and Jesus, so that, number one, if you have those doubts, they're taken care of, but more importantly, that you have some foundation for your faith. We've got to remember that Paul told Timothy to be kind to everyone, patient with difficult people, and gently instruct others. What that means is that we're lovingly sharing the truth and letting God change the hearts. How many times have you prayed for God to change someone's heart before you even start to share with them the truth? Do you firmly believe that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, and the only way to God? If you do, then why? How can you believe that? Can you tell other people this morning why Christianity is more valid than other religions in the world? And not just because I say so or you say so. Can you show them why God's word is true and that Jesus truly is who he said he was? Here's something that we have to remember, and that is that Christianity is not some mere abstract philosophy. It's reality. It's a reality. Because Jesus didn't just claim that he was the only Son of God. He validated that claim in ways that nobody else could ever do. And you know what? It's recorded in history. It's not just in the Bible. There's a lot of extra biblical historical writings that talk about the life of Jesus because history supports what the Bible says about Jesus. Can you share that with someone else? Can you point them to something that tells them this is true? We've seen two myths so far. The first is that all religions are basically the same. We know that's not true because apart from every other faith. The second myth is that Christianity is just a philosophy among a lot of other philosophies and isn't even other religions. But that's not true because Christ has credibility. There's no other spiritual leader like Jesus. I really think for anyone who's willing to seek the truth, they will find it. And if we as Christians are praying for their hearts to be changed, they will be changed. Lastly, the third myth we'll look at this morning. People will say, well, Christians are the only way for eternal salvation or to eternal salvation. You know what? If pluralism is right, then Christianity is narrow-minded. If we want to adopt a pluralistic mindset. What's been true has always been true down through the ages. And like I've said before, we can be enlightened in our understanding of the truth, but the truth has not changed. What was true in eternity is still true today, and when people discount this just because with it, that doesn't make it less true. Here's an example, I think, that illustrates this point. When our oldest son, Alex, was shortly after he was born. As you know, jaundice is that disease of the liver that causes your skin. Made sure to tell us about some of the long-term devastating effects that jaundice could have on a person, but he also said there's a real easy treatment for it. He said all we had to do was to put our newborn son under a special light for a few minutes each day, and that would stimulate his liver, and he would quickly recover. And I want you to imagine some hypothetical conversations that could have taken place, could have taken place between Sharon and I and the doctor. As parents, we could have, that sounds too easy. Soap and dip him in bleach. And you know what? If we work again back to the color that it was meant to be, what do you think the doctor would say to us if we said that? After a very disgusted look, he'd probably say, you don't want to do that. It just won't work because there's only one way to handle this disease. And thinking it was too easy, if we just ignore Alex's symptoms and pretend that everything's okay. Because we say, the jaundice truth. Doc, it's not our truth. And if we sincerely believe in our truth, then nothing will work, then things will work out for the best. The doctor would the health of your son, there's only one way that you can help him. You're hesitating because it sounds too medical schools, and I've used what I've learned to help countless other babies just like yours. You're going to very good reason to trust me, he would say. So let's assume. Sure, and I decided, you know what? Follow the doctor's advice. Who in the world would look at the two of us and say, man, you're very narrow-minded for following that doctor? Nobody would say that, would they? Because everybody knows the truth. Narrow-minded, it's being rational, it's being logical. We're following the evidence. And you know what? If you read the Bible or just look around the world today, there's a lot of evidence, but there's another disease that has affected all of us, and that disease is called sin. And as you know, the end result of sin robs us of that eternal life that God wants us to enjoy. But the treatment for this disease is so easy. It's as easy as placing our son under a light. It's responding out of our faith and not out of some obligation. You all know this, but just let me remind you, one sin disqualified us from eternal life. One sin committed by us made us non-eligible for heaven. I don't know about you, but I got the obligation met pretty early in my life, okay? Somewhere between the time we started sinning, probably at a very young age, and sometime before we die, we've heard the message about God's prescription and his treatment for our disease. Doesn't make sense. What it says is for your disease. I don't know if anybody knows the movie Wayne's World, but the line, "We're not worthy, we're not worthy, we're not worthy," just comes to my mind. We're not. But he is. And he is Jesus. Jesus had to be sinless. Jesus had to be completely sinless in order to be our substitute. And as he was that. There's plenty of evidence in the Bible, both inside and out, that provide details of how Jesus lived on this earth. Was Jesus sinless? You know what? I have to assume that he was. When he was here, he had more than enough enemies who were always looking or trying to find something that he could do wrong. And what was it? The only thing that they could find was that he didn't follow their codes that they had made up on their own. So Jesus was sinless for the sin in our lives, and he's willing to, quote unquote, stand in for anyone. Can I emphasize the word anyone who's willing to believe in him? Jesus does not exclude. There are so many clubs and organizations in this world that I could never join because the color is wrong, my ethnic background, my gender is wrong, and I don't think I can change it. And the list just goes on and on. So what happens? Those organizations exclude me because of things that I cannot change. But when it comes to being a follower of Jesus, there are no boundaries. There are no restrictions. Anyone who considers the evidence and finds out that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life can become one of his followers. You see, contrary to what I want to say, Christianity is the most inclusive group of people on the face of the earth. Everybody's welcome. In the book of Revelation, it talks about how one day there will be every tribe, every nation, every different kind of person assembling in heaven. I'm beginning to wonder if that's talking about more than just ethnicity and geography. You know, I would not be surprised to see some people who everybody assumed were followers of another religion, but in their hearts they followed Jesus. You see, God changed their hearts. They may have looked a different way that we prejudge and make us think that that's who they are, but they were really followers of Christ. I don't know what you're looking forward to when you get to heaven, but one of the many, many things I'm looking forward to is asking people how they heard about Christ. And the first people are the people who I'm pretty sure nobody told them during their life about Jesus. Because even today, there are people on the face of this earth who have not heard that story yet. But you know what? I think they could still be in heaven. In fact, I think they will be if their heart is where God said it needed to be. Ever wondered how God's going to handle that about people who, they gospel, they didn't publicly confess, they weren't baptized. Are they going to go to heaven? Let me give you 5 things that I think we need to remember when that question comes to our minds. Number 1 is everyone has a... Romans chapter 2 tells us that. Number 2 is everyone has access to God's witness in nature. We can't look at the world. We've talked about that so much in this series too, about the undeniable facts that it's too well put together just to be an accident. There has to be a God who helped put all of this together. Romans 1 talks about that. Those who sincerely seek God will find him. Again, if there's this awareness of sin, if there's this awareness of God, and the decide people to draw them to God, Jesus said, seek and you will find, knock and the door will be opened to you. Ask and it will be given to you. Matthew 7:7. Here's the one that I rely on a lot. It comes out of Genesis chapter 18, verse 25. God always does what's right. If you look at Genesis chapter 18, it's a conversation between Abraham and God. God is wanting to destroy the city of Sodom, and Abraham is pleading for it. He's saying, God, wait, time out. And God says, don't you think a real God will always do the right thing? Lastly, 2 Corinthians 4:5, only God sees the true depths of a person's heart. I learned a long time ago it's just easier to let God be the judge of people in their hearts. And for me, just to be sure that Jesus is the way and the truth and the life in my own heart and life. So this morning I'm going to close with a little heart check that I want all of us to take together. 3 questions. Do you believe? To a lifetime of adventure, fulfillment, challenge, and purpose? Second question. Meaning that he will provide you with wisdom for everyday life and for the turbulent times in your lives? Number 3, do you believe that Jesus is the life? Meaning that only he can give you confidence for the future here on earth as well as eternity in heaven. It's not those things to you this morning, and you can't explain why he is those things to you this morning. I'm going to invite you to try to figure it out. And it starts with an invitation for you to let God work on your heart and help you understand. But you know what? You've got to take that step. It's like after today's service, I look forward to going home, probably because it's kind of rainy or whatever. I'll take a nap, and then maybe I'll wake up and I'll... But you know what? I could think for a very long time about how I'm going to get from here that very long distance to my house, okay? I could sit for hours and contemplate, am I going to walk? Am I going to drive my car? I could call a helicopter if I wanted to, and to take that long distance to my house. I could do that. How will I get home today? The bottom line is none of them will get me there unless I make the decision of which one I'm going to go with. How are you going to get home? I'm not talking about your house. I'm talking about eternity. How are you going to get home? If Jesus is not the way, then intolerant of us to say that he is the only way, but with all that we know of what he's done here on earth, doesn't it make the most logical sense that Jesus truly is the way, the truth, and the life? So the question is this: who are we going to follow? Who are we going to follow? Let's sing. about who we follow.